Hello and welcome to XFL from the Stands XFL edition, week 3. I'm here. My name is Geoff, and I'm over here with Cam. Cam, please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Cameron.
All right.
Uh,
Do you have a rooting interest, Cam? A favorite team?
Favorite team? Teams? Not sure. Player? I still love John Tiama despite the fact he lost.
Tayama, very good, very good. All right. So getting right into it, we're gonna do the
Well, first off,
the recap of last week's game. So, what were your initial reactions to the games last week, there, Cam?
there's some. For the most part, results-wise, they went how I expected. In terms of the specifics, there was some real crazy stuff happening. I think if we just go over the scores here, DC beat New York by 27-0. Seattle beat Tampa Bay by 17 points to 9. Dallas beat LA by 25 points to 18. And Houston came out on top against St. Louis by 28 points to 24.
Okay, so what are your impressions of the New York Guardians at DC Defenders game, in brief?
Brief, DC as every bit as good as they looked in week 1. New York, as much as sort of solid as they looked in week 1, sucked beyond comparison in week 2, so much that they dropped a goose egg, first goose egg of the new XFL. So, what were your views on that one?
Well, I thought it was going to be the game that I really wanted to see the most, and I thought that the New York Guardians by eye test were better than the way they were statistically because offensively they didn't look so great, but in reality, they really were what the statistics would indicate, and they're not that good. They just looked great against a pretty poor Vipers team, and DC continues to look pretty solid, very solid defensive team, and enough offense to keep them in it and keep generating some points and getting them the wins. So that's my view on that one.
So,
Jumping, go ahead.
should we say, speaking on Tampa Bay, move over to that one?
Yeah, Tampa Bay Vipers at Seattle Dragons. How do you feel about that one?
Tampa looking like the worst team in the league. I think that 3 points in the first week, we gave them benefit of the doubt first game, but now the second game, they still don't look anywhere near up to the rest of the league. So I think they are a strong contender for just, games running up to the championship. You see, oh, this team is playing Tampa. That looks like just a gimme. They're becoming the sort of, throwaway of the league this season.
Yeah,
Seattle. Yeah, that's what your views on Tampa.
yeah, Tampa moved the ball a little better than Seattle did throughout the game, but didn't have much to show for it. I was very unimpressed. It was, boy, every bit as bad as I thought it could be. So you were going to comment on the Dragons there?
Yeah, I think this game went pretty much how we thought it would in terms of Seattle were. They played very well in the first game despite not winning. I think they played pretty much at similar level as their first game, put up a similar amount of points, which it puts them middle of the road, I think, in terms of the team quality. They're definitely not as bad as everyone thought going into the season. Everyone picked them to be awful, but I think they proved a lot of people wrong. It's 2 weeks in, they're definitely silencing a few haters.
Yeah, I think Seattle's probably middle lower pack for me. I'm thinking they're probably in the range of maybe 6th or 7th in the league personally, and I thought they'd be a little bit better than that. But they still struggle to move the ball. They still don't really have an offense. But somehow, despite losing statistically 2 weeks in a row, they're still winning, which I think is a weird thing with this league, is that some of these stats, like you're looking at a team that can drive up and down the field, and yet they're losing in games, and that's what I keep seeing. It's almost a curse to have lots of offensive production.
I mean, that's, I think, becoming a trademark of Tampa, is that these past 2 games, they moved the ball like a hot knife through butter, and yet somehow when it came to production of putting points on the board, fell dead flat, which I think is really strange in just any football, really, to see a team so dominate an opposition in open field and then get the red zone and just crap their pants so aggressively. That's really something.
So game 3 of the weekend was that the LA and Renegades game there? It was Dallas at LA. Yeah, yes. What were your takes on that one?
This was an odd one because LA was like Seattle first week. We saw them play arguably far stronger opposition, so we didn't really get a gauge on how well they can play against someone that isn't going to completely dominate the rest of the league. And Dallas, with Landry Jones coming in, it's going to be an interesting matchup, and this was just baffling. This was 6-3 going into the fourth quarter. 6 points to 3. 3 field goals. Not even a touchdown that was missed. 3 field goals. And then it finishes 25-18. It beat the spread in the fourth quarter alone, which just seemed... I don't even know how to unpack it. I think we could do this for 10 days straight. I still wouldn't be able to fully unpack it.
Yeah, it was a turnover fest, right? Every time they'd get down in the shadow of the end goal line, there was a turnover, and it was to the point where I was laughing at how truly bad it was. I mean, it was like you got this turnover, the Dragons are about to score, and we're going, wait a minute. Like, I wouldn't know how to react if we had a score. Like, what are we going to do? And then no sooner into that, we had a fumbled handoff that gets taken over the other way, and you're like, that's about what we've come to expect in this game. It was so bad, it was actually kind of entertaining, but it was bad.
Objectively speaking, it was just like, well, this is some awful football to watch from like a coaching and looking at the game, wanting your players to do the correct thing perspective. But from a fan standpoint, people are, scoring now, so hey.
Yeah. No, it was an entertaining thing, and I think in the end of the day, LA proved, like I thought they were a little better than maybe some thought, that they had some ability to kind of come together. I felt like I would have eaten my words if I picked them as the winner. I didn't, okay. But Dallas, gosh, they continue to just have a very anemic offense. They did fine with quarterback Landry Jones back in action. But they certainly weren't crisp or beautiful there. They still had their struggles. So with that, I guess we'll move on to our final game, which was the least watched game of the weekend because it was on Fox Sports 1. But that was the big battle between the St. Louis Battlehawks and the Houston Renegades.
Roughnecks.
I'm sorry, Roughnecks. What did I just read? I don't know where I got that. Houston, right? Yeah. Or Dallas, Houston. Yeah, I got it wrong. Okay, go. Yeah. We'll take it away. Thanks for the correction.
Yeah, I mean the announcers did it first game, so I don't know what it is. This is arguably the best team in the league, and yet no one can get the name right. So the Houston Roughnecks, with a close one in Houston against St. Louis. Don't blame me. I'm not from America. It was about as close as I expected without going to overtime. The two quarterbacks, PJ Walker, John Tamu, put on a show, and in the end, I think the defense won it, and I think that's exactly how it was going to come down to in terms of crucial turnovers. There was going to be no stopping the offenses. It was only cutting them out and completely and going up the other end, which was going to win this game. And in the end, Houston just got that slight edge.
Yeah, I would say this game was really, someone had to win, but they were both, when you're talking about a one play difference, you got to go with the idea that it was, really close. And to that, I'd say St. Louis is better than I believe them to be preseason or even after week one. I didn't believe they had a passing game. I was wrong on that. Okay, Tamu, he balled out. Whatever, the Philippine guy, he was
Hawaiian.
the Hawaiian. Okay, Pacific Islander. We'll just broaden my geography. Somewhere on Earth, he balled out. And and I obviously PJ Walker is phenomenal. He's tough to bring down. They actually St. Louis did manage to slow him down a little bit, but he still continues to show he can make plays. They did get some defensive stops, and I think my estimation of the Houston Roughnecks probably slipped just a little bit, but I still think, in my estimation, top of the league there. So we've done our recap, and at that point, I think we'll move on to our power ratings. Is that right? Or did you want to talk about the quarterbacks first?
Yeah, I think we have a couple of discussion topics in terms of the quarterback, specifically going in a little bit more on Landry Jones' debut in the XFL.
Okay.
It was growing pains is what I think we'd call it. He hasn't played for a while. His NFL appearances were iffy, but let's get his stat line up here. Here we go. He threw for 305 yards, which is a lot of production. Completion percentage of 70%, long of 39 yards. But here's the killer: is that he threw for 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions, which was something I noticed that going into his NFL stat line, there were a lot of turnovers in terms of touchdowns, 2 turnovers. It was not what you'd call NFL caliber, but I think in the XFL, where we're expecting this sort of back and forth games with, big chunk plays and lots of scoring, I think it will maybe get lost in the mix as things start to develop. But growing pains, but there was definitely a lot of potential, and obviously in the end he came out with the win, which is what they couldn't do without him in week one. So that's overall, I'd say, it's positive, and just keep on going with him.
Yeah, I deem this sort of like XFL week 1 2.0 in a lot of ways, because someone like Landry Jones, this is their first time taking the helm, so it's really like they're almost a first week team all over again. I thought Landry Jones played well, considering he is rusty. He had some miscommunications with the receivers. He had some mental errors. All of that because he was injured, if I remember correctly from the broadcast, just in the first practice of the year. So he didn't have any preseason. He had a couple of practices this week, and that was him showing up. So I think he has a lot more upside than he showed. And I'm sure I'm making our host here, Caleb, happy, because I'm repping the Oklahoma Sooners here. But I think he's going to prove out. But I think you also have to take into consideration the fact that he was just showing up for the first time for some years with 2 or 3 practices under his belt, and that I think gives you a little context for saying that maybe he needs a little bit of leeway on making a couple mental errors or missing his timing on some throws. Yep. So with that, I guess we're on to some other quarterback drama.
Yes.
Oh, as a Penn Stater, do I have to mention this one?
Yeah, you're gonna have to do it. You're gonna have to do it, Geoff. I'll start for you just to ease you in. Matt.
Let me just say this. I'm gonna give you a line from our alma mater. May no act of ours bring shame to one heart that loves thy name. Matt, you let me down here, buddy. All right, go ahead and introduce it.
It's Matt McGloin. Yeah. If Landry Jones is the, quarterback that we're all saying, hey, pat on the back, well done, it's your first week. Go on, you go kill him. Then Matt McGloin is the person that we're looking at and going, oh boy, you gonna come here. I've got the belt. You're gonna be disciplined. He put up a goose egg, the first goose egg of the XFL, 0 points. Let me get his personal stat line up here. 8 for 19, a completion percentage of 42%, a long of only 10 yards, and 2 interceptions. And if just the play on the field itself wasn't enough, he had some in-game and post-game interviews that were just, I mean, it's great entertainment if you're watching it, but not great if you're a team trying to prove itself in a new league. So let me give you a quote here from McGloin during the game, which was basically, "We need to change the whole entire game plan at halftime." That should make some interesting discussions with the coach. So let's break that quote down. Geoff, how are we feeling about that one?
Not a great moment, but I feel like there were worse moments, really. That's sad to say. That was probably a high point. I mean, we had some real whinings, kind of, he's had some time to lead some teams. He was a starting quarterback. He was a walk-on that came out of high school, was pretty decent back then. He had, I think, at least 3 years of starting, but I couldn't remember in college. He had started, I think, 8 NFL games. You'd think he'd have a little bit more of that sort of leadership ability. And I understand that maybe this is also the first time we're really going mic'd up on a sideline, and maybe that is pretty standard. Sidelines I was involved with, I didn't see that kind of stuff. I mean, if there was a quarterback doing that, the coach was pretty quick to kind of shut him down, and just say, hey, you're here representing, or and you're leading everyone. If you're going to do this, they're not going to follow you. So that was different for me to see that and just go, my gosh, this is really bad. Because at some point in your life, owning a job or whatever, you say, there's just times where you just kind of zip it, shut up, and you go, I know there's things I want to say, and I need to not say them. And I didn't see that with them. There was no filter going on.
Yeah, I think that's definitely like a product of these new sideline interviews right after the plays, raw emotion. But to describe your own offense is, to quote him, embarrassing. Just flat out embarrassing to describe your own offense. The thing that you're in charge of on field is just really strange. And like you said, with a coach cutting stuff out, I think that's where the sideline interviews really coming through, because here we are. Yeah, Kilbride, the coach, said, yeah, he needed, when they interviewed him on the sideline, he says, I need to go talk to him and figure stuff out, which you'd be able to do in private during, well, say a standard NFL game or college game, you'd be able to do in private. You wouldn't have to talk to a reporter to tell them that you're going and talking to your quarterback. It would all be sorted in the dressing room at halftime. But with this stuff, every thought, everything, every sort of emotion that's going on every sideline. So I think we have nothing really to compare it to, because this could happen on half of the NFL sidelines when a team isn't playing that well, or it could happen on none of them. We don't know if this is Matt McGloin as a player being a particular case of, I mightier than thou, you need to sort things out, or if this is just a thing that happens that we're now getting a new insight into because of this sideline stuff.
Yeah. Well, we're going to wrap up here a little. I will say, just in closing, there was just one moment that was even worse than that. And that's when we got even better access from Matt McGloin, when he said, we have all these problems in the locker room, and now you're starting to show. I mean, that was like the low blow, because that threw everyone. It wasn't just his teammates. It wasn't a bad receiver play. It was like everyone under the bus. So we're going to move on to PJ Walker here and talk a little about him. So couple sentences, because we are running a little long on our segment here.
Oh, PJ Walker is production wise is real good. Points on board, exceptional. He's still quite young as well. He is, I think he's like 24 or something. So he is definitely one to watch. And I think in the long term as well, players that are going to try and make this leap from the XFL into the NFL, I think he's definitely one to watch.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that he's really exciting to watch. I think he's got the ability to keep his eyes downfield even as he scrambles. He's able to use his feet effectively, and he's really what they really need in the XFL right now because the line play isn't really there enough to have a drop back pro style passer, and he really fills the gap as well as a couple others like Cardale Jones and even Teamu to be able to say, look, you've got to be able to move, got to be able to create with your feet and extend plays, and he does that phenomenally. So I think we'll at that point say good on PJ Walker, unless you have any rebuttal to what I've said, and
No, I
yeah.
agree. He's really exciting. So with
All right.
that, are we on to the power rankings? I think
Sure. Yeah, we'll do some power rankings. So what do you got in the East?
the East. Let's see. Get the actual division up here. I think we'll start at the bottom. Tampa, rock bottom of not just the East but the whole XFL. They really are not impressing anyone. um, I think
What's your number 3 there?
number 3. Let me get
I'll definitely
stuff.
agree with you on the 4. We got Tampa Bay. Also in the East, we've got St. Louis, we've got DC, and we've got New York.
Yeah,
I'm
I
going to go
think.
New York
Yeah,
number 3.
yeah, I'm agree with you on that one. I think they showed us that they can score points against teams and they can certainly defend against teams, but when they come up against really good teams, it, it falls flat. So I think we put them at number 3, especially in terms of a form ranking. I think number 2.
Just glancing up here, I guess we've got the bottom 4. So I guess we didn't do justice to the West there. So we've got Seattle Dragons ranked last in the West. Agree, disagree?
That's between last in the West is definitely between LA and Seattle. Really, I, I mean, I look at it and LA 2 losses versus 1 win and 1 loss. I'd actually argue that Seattle could be number 3 and put LA at the bottom because just looking at the table, Seattle has a win and loss, and LA hasn't been
Okay.
able to beat anyone. So I would argue put Seattle at number 3 in the West.
Okay.
Um,
All right. And then that means that you would put LA at number 3 in the West as well. Or sorry, Seattle at number 3 rather.
yeah,
I
Seattle.
sort of see it the other way. I think LA can generate some offense. I don't think that Seattle can. So I have it Seattle last and LA third in the West. Who's your number 2 pick in the East there?
Number 2 in the East is St. Louis. I think Gion Tiamu is young, and with only 2 years of starting, it's showing that some of his reads aren't there. Especially with some of the picks. Late in games, I've noticed his, in that crunch time, some of his pass reads have been not quite up to par. But I think that's just because he does only have like 2 years as a starter under his belt in college. I think he definitely has the raw talent to be a very good quarterback, and I think he is showing that by putting up a lot of points and winning games. Obviously, he's only played 2, but he has won 1, and they've put up points in a lot of them. So I'm gonna put them at 2.
And DC at 1. And I agree completely with that. I think DC's well led with Cardale Jones. He's a proven quarterback. So definitely agree there. In the West, number 2, I'm going to have to go with the Dallas Renegades. They're not quite up to the Houston standards. They've got the ability to generate yards, but they cannot finish off drives. They just don't have that ability. I mean, they're Hal Mummy's calling 4 verts on the 5-yard line. I mean, I don't know how you're supposed. I don't know how you're supposed to create separation like that. It just didn't. For an experienced coach, I question some of what was there and why. But so that's my power rankings. Any agreement or disagreement there, real quickly,
Yeah,
about 30
uh,
seconds?
yeah, I'd agree. Dallas second, simply because they are not as bad as LA or Seattle, but I think Houston is miles above at the top in terms of the West. And I think if you look at this week's power rankings, Houston on top in the West, DC in the East. I think that could be the XFL championship game. I think that could be it. But time will tell.
I agree. So finally, we've got Pick'em, and to wrap up our show here. So we've got some matchups this weekend. Houston at Tampa Bay will be on ABC at 2 p.m. on Saturday, and Dallas at Seattle will be the encore on Fox at 5. Sunday's games will be New York at St. Louis, ESPN at 3. DC at LA on Fox Sports 1 at 6 o'clock on Sunday. These times are Eastern. Seems like we're starting to get away from the networks and getting into paid content. And certainly last week we saw that the lowest rated game was the one on the cable. So that's unfortunate because some of these good games are showing up not in the main, ABC Fox broadcasts. So pick 'em. Houston at Tampa. Who do you have?
Houston at Tampa. Well, if this is the lock-in of the week. I think. Yeah. If Tampa Bay wins this game, to quote the old proverb, I will eat my hat. So I'm going Houston to win it against Tampa, then to beat the spread by God. I think the clock will limit how many points Houston can put up. The game will end before they'll finish.
So the highest score we've had so far is 37 points. Over or under on 37 points for Houston? I'm going over. I think they're going to set a new score record. Tampa Bay's not bad on defense, but I think they will. I think Tampa doesn't have the ability to control the ball enough. Yeah, all right. So Houston's our lock of the week. We got Dallas at Seattle. A little bit trickier. Dallas Renegades at Seattle Dragons. Who do you have?
Yeah, this is... I keep looking at some of the games and going, oh, this could be the one to go to overtime. I thought it would have been Houston-St. Louis last week. I was close. I have the same feeling about this one. I think I'm gonna go with Dallas just because I think the production was good from Landry Jones. I think with game time he'll cut out those those turnovers. So I'm gonna go with Dallas for this one, but it'll be a close one, I think.
I think similarly close. I could see either way, but I am going to take Dallas. I think that they can get a little bit more in on Seattle. I think that Landry in his second week and Seattle's still not able to put up more than maybe low double digits points. I think Dallas can best them there. All right. New York at St. Louis. We've got the Guardians. We wonder if Matt McGloin will be making a repeat appearance here, or he's riding the pine after last week. And St. Louis Battlehawks. I'm going Battlehawks. I don't nearly need to explain that one. I don't think. Your pick.
Yeah, I think you go with St. Louis. John Tiamo has proved that he is a fantastic quarterback, and New York, it's flip a coin whether Matt McGloin starts or they have the backup in. Neither of them have done any good, so I think, especially with football back at the Dome, that atmosphere will be something else. I think St. Louis has this one.
Yeah, I mean, New York has the lowest offensive play count of anybody for 2 weeks running. It was 47 offensive plays and 45, and they're giving the other offenses double the number of chances to score as they have, and that's hard. They really put their defense in a bad position. Yeah. DC at LA. This one's a tough pick here. DC or LA there, Cam?
I'm going to go with DC simply because I think they're riding momentum now. They have a lot of momentum behind them now. LA still not playing bad, but they have the opposite. They have negative momentum. They've lost 2. While they haven't played bad, they still have that we've yet to win a game of football mentality. DC is like, well, we're just walking over people. So I think DC will take this one.
I'm also picking DC. I think it's tight. I do think LA might have a chance to win at home here. But give a push, and I'm going to say DC, and I think it's probably close, but who knows? I thought the game against New York would be close, and it was 27-0. So that was my terrible pick of the week last week. But yeah, I'm going to go DC. And with that, I think we're going to say thank you for watching us here from all of us at From the Stands, Cam, Geoff, Caleb on production, and all the rest here. Brian, our fearless leader. Thank you for being a part of us here from the stands. That concludes week 3. Goodbye, everyone.